is going on, everybody? We are back for another episode. We're the only playbook. I'm Sweecar. Shashot has joined us again, and we got Shovit, the whole crew. A lot of implications. Shashot, you're fighting for your playoff life this week. Shovit clinched last week. He was hurrahing during the last episode, which you missed out on.
What is Orion?
Hurrah, hurrah, hooray.
Yeah. No, congrats, bro. I'm happy for you. You've been working really hard, and now you get to play with the big boys. So welcome to the club.
Well, you'll get to play with the big boys if you make it. It's so close.
It seems like it's tough based on what I understand about the situation. You have to win, and then
Sean has to win. Amin has to win, but not by a lot.
not score a lot. Like you have to outscore me.
Dude, like it's fine. Like you can't win them all always, and like just I'm gonna be like number one in the other two leagues, and sometimes it's like that's okay. You just do your best, man. Like what I'm not gonna. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, you can only fault yourself if you make like managerial decisions incorrectly.
Yeah,
but if you did everything you're supposed to do, then you can't really...
Browns pick up last minute, just chilling in my bench, and that would have made all the difference. But that's the kind of shit like you we've been talking about this all year, right? Like you're not going to get it all right, and sometimes like you just got to take it and just roll with the bunches. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I don't fault you for that because your other defense was pretty good too.
Yeah, Seahawks. It was Seahawks, and they were against a really bad team, and they got 8 points, which is good, in the grand scheme of things. But 31, like that's a whole different story.
That's game changer. Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that they would have like 3 defensive touchdowns in the fourth? Like it was insane. Yeah. But yeah, again, a lot to fight for. We will talk all about it, as well as preview week 14, last week before playoffs start in fantasy football. Without further ado, guys, let's kick it off with water cooler talk. Before we preview Thursday Night Football last night and that shit show where I'm going to go off on the Raiders, one quick thing to note, something that we've talked about all year, the Atlanta Falcons have made a change at quarterback. Desmond Ridder is going to be starting after the bye week. They're on a bye this week, so starting week 15, we finally get to see the Desmond Ridder show. He was the second quarterback taken, and he hasn't played a snap yet. So I'm excited to see what he's all about. I know Shovit preseason, he was number 1 quarterback on your board. You had him ahead of your boy KP. So I'm sure you're excited. I'm excited. I loved him in college, and Atlanta, why not? Right? They have nothing to play for. Mariota's not the future, and let's see what this kid has got. That's the only relevant news. Without further ado, let's talk right about the Thursday Night Football game last night. Raiders and Rams. Baker Mayfield starting after practicing for 3 minutes, being on the team for 4 minutes, learning the playbook in 5 minutes. Raiders on the road, favored by 6 points. They lose. They lose to the Rams in LA, 17-16 final. Rams cover the 6-point spread, under 42. Let me just ask you guys one thing. Are you at all surprised?
No, the Raiders are the new Chargers. The Raiders are the new Chargers, man.
What was that game? If you watch that game, that is a blueprint. Shasho, you talked about it, the blueprint of what the Vikings have been all about the past 5 years, right? Every time you're getting the ball with the lead, you're playing so afraid. You're like, okay, we're going to run the ball. Every single time we snap the ball, there's going to be less than 5 seconds left on the game clock. They were trying to half-ass their way into this victory, and it caught up to them. All it took was 2 drives in the fourth quarter, and Baker Mayfield and gang came back, and they won. I mean, so many chances to put your foot on the gas and put the game away early because, if this game was 23-3 or 27-3 early, then yeah, the Raiders could have literally just ran the ball for the rest of the game, and they had no chance. But they kept keeping it close. Derek Carr had that stupid interception before the end of the first half where they could have extended it to 13 points or 17 points. I mean, what the hell was that? But he was pathetic. How are you throwing for 137 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions against the Rams? These stats just don't even make sense. They gave Josh Jacobs the ball 27 times, despite him dislocating his finger middle of the game, came back. He was doing this, but they kept him in the game. I'm like, you guys are acting like this game is so easy to win. Why is he running the ball hurt like this if you guys are serious about his future? So nothing made sense. 27 carries, 99 yards and a touchdown, 2 receptions, 15 yards. Adams, amazing catches every time they throw him the ball, but he only had 3 for 71 because they were like, you know what? We don't really need to use him. We're going to win this game. Matt Collins, 3 end-arounds for 40 yards. I've never seen one player get 3 end-arounds in the same game, so that was kind of wild. 2 catches, 22 yards. The story of the game, though, Raiders in the red zone, they got there 4 times. They only scored 1 time. I mean, I don't understand before this game, they kept showing that interview of Derek Carr, right? It's like, where's the turning point? He was crying. He was like, when you just try so hard, you put all your effort in and it just doesn't resonate. Like, I'm upset, man. I'm hurt. And I'm like, really? Really? Like, you had that kind of emotional showing, but you let your team perform this way against the Rams when you're slowly building momentum, have a chance to like win out and possibly push for the playoffs. What the hell was this performance? Like, I just need you guys to explain it to me.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Just feed Devontae Adams, right? Like every time he was open against Jalen Ramsey, who's like Ramsey's like irrelevant now, and he was catching all those amazing passes, and they just
I
stopped.
mean,
3 receptions, like that was kind of ridiculous.
like, okay, Ramsey's not irrelevant. He's still pretty fucking good, and like he did a good job guarding them. It's not like they were like wide open. It's not like he outran them or like Devontae Adams had to work his ass off to catch those balls. And I don't know if you saw the over the shoulder one, but like most receivers would have turned their head around and like moved their arms. He literally moved nothing and just went.
Yeah.
Like that's how you get Ramsey. Like that's how you get those players, and that's exactly what he did. So if you see that happening, why not run plays where you're not against Ramsey? Because Ramsey doesn't move. Ramsey just sits there. And there was so many plays where you see Adams in the slot, right? And you're like, oh, great. This is perfect. He's going to be wide open. Nobody can guard Adams. And then like they move him to motion to be right in front of Ramsey. And I'm like, this play calling is idiotic. They think they had this game at the end of the second quarter. They were just running the ball. The play calling was just stupid. I would have just fired McDaniels at halftime, to be honest with you. I think, Carr sucks. Like, he's not a reliable starter. At least, like, even with some of the shittier quarterbacks, there's a level of consistency. There's something you can bank on. Like, oh, he's going to play like this, so we need to do this to, overpower his shittiness, right? Carr, you can't do that because sometimes he shows you flashes of greatness. Sometimes he's just scared out of his mind. Sometimes he's throwing weird-ass passes that are picks. So, I think this is a coaching issue. This Raiders whole season is a big-time coaching issue where they're not understanding what their players can do. They're not understanding what the level of firepower that's on this offense is pretty high. Like, these guys are all great players. Clearly, Josh Jacobs, number 1 running back in the NFL. Statistically, Devontae Adams, number 1 receiver in the NFL from a touchdown standpoint. So it's not like they're lacking weapons on either side of running, passing, whatever. They can't execute. That's why their kicker's the best kicker in the league because they kick so many goddamn field goals because they can't execute. And the play calling is just so bad, man. That's like, there's so many reasons to not like the Raiders right now.
No, they thought they could do what teams that are run first do, right? Control the clock, control the tempo, push, run the ball twice, and then on third downs throw, get in third and manageable, control the clock, and then keep the Rams off the field, which, in theory, that's all fine and dandy as long as the times you have the ball, you're converting, right? As long as every time you touch the ball, you're milking clock, but you're coming away with at least some points. And I don't know. Again, the play calling was by far the worst thing I've ever seen because, again, the whole team, the coach, the quarterback, the running, everybody felt like they were going to win this game despite everything else playing out, right? They're like, we could pretty much just sit here on our asses for 45 minutes. And by the end of the game, we're going to have won this game. And, in reality or in theory, yes, because the Rams have literally no one. They've literally no one. They tried to hand you the football game. Cam Akers with a fumble. Like, Baker Mayfield knows 2 plays in the entire playbook. Like, he just signed onto the team like 3 days ago for a quarterback. Like, you don't even know where your receivers are going to be. And I'm just like, how are you losing to this team? But that's the epitome, man. Kudos to Baker. Shout out to him for coming in clutch down the stretch. I mean, those 2 drives at the end were pretty unbelievable.
Dude, 98 yards with no timeouts. A little help from the ref, not going to lie. Right, but, still, with like less than 2 minutes left, no timeouts, like sideline to sideline throws. Skoranic's catch was fucking unbelievable. Like, it was just like one of those moments where you're just like, damn, like, this is why I love football. Because, like, weird shit like that happens.
Yeah, me and Chauvin on the last week's episode, I was like, Chauvin, there's no reason the Raiders shouldn't cover the 6-point spread, right? And you immediately hesitated, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's how I feel too about the Raiders because they're just not trustworthy. But on paper, they should have demolished the Rams. It shouldn't have even been close. They were up by 10 pretty much the whole game. If they just put one more touchdown on the board, this game's over. But they tried to coast, and again, let this be a lesson to every team in the NFL. There's a reason all these teams are in the same league, right? Yeah, one team's really bad, one team's a little bit better, but if you give these shitty teams enough chances, like they can still do things. So again, you can't really take any team lightly. And this was a game where the Raiders came in and looked like they were just like going through walkthrough. They're like, we can just half-ass
Yeah,
75% this whole
for
thing.
real.
We don't even need to throw our best player the football, even though he's making one-handed catches, making over-the-shoulder catches. Everything that's thrown his way is like an unbelievable catch. But no, we're not going to use him that much. We're just going to end around to Matt Collins and run Josh Jacobs to the ground, even though he's like visibly hurt. So I'm like, just none of this is really making sense. So yeah, Josh McDaniels, like, and last thing, last thing is coaching can only take you so far because this coaching change already happened preseason, right? Like this is a brand new coach, his first year with the Raiders, and they were this same disarrayed Raiders team last year, despite whatever coach they had. So like, at what point are we just like, Derek Carr, you're done. Like, this is just not it. Derek Carr, I'm sorry, you're out. You can't throw for 137 yards against the Rams, who are literally putting like you, me, the three of us on the field on defense. You know, like they have nobody besides Jalen Ramsey. They have nobody. Von Miller was out, or not Von Miller. Aaron Donald was out, and Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey are like the only guys on their defense. Bobby Wagner was playing, but he's old. So like, I don't know, man. I am just so fed up with this like lackluster performance, like lack of like aggressiveness, lack of like, I'm trying to win this game versus I'm not trying to lose this game. And I think it's just PTSD from being a Vikings fan for the last 4 years. And that's literally what our recipe has been every single game.
It's also like kudos to us for like recognizing this shit. Just like we have 20 plus years of football information in our heads, whether we like it or not. And we're recognizing this pattern, right? It's like the Raiders literally look identical to some of these shitty teams that we've been yelling at for majority of our lives. It's like, what are you doing? Like, capitalize, put your foot on their throat. What are you like? Anyways, yeah, I digress. But yeah, Raiders, this is classic Raiders. Welcome to the new Chargers. They're officially the new Chargers.
God, it's pathetic. Rams win this one, steal the victory. Baker Mayfield 1-0 as a Ram, 17-16 final at home. And I didn't even talk about anybody on the Rams because fantasy-wise, was there really anybody worth mentioning?
No.
Cam Akers, if you were desperate, you started him. He found the end zone, but he also fumbled the ball, so I think he ended up with less than 10 points. So whatever. But yeah, that's the end of that chapter. Let's move on to bigger and better things. I didn't update any injuries. Again, it's Friday. I will tweet everything out on Only Playbook on Twitter. So make sure you give us a follow and turn your notifications on prior to Sunday. That's it for Water Cooler Talk, guys. Let's jump into the rundown. I just want to say I have such an issue with the NFL schedule makers this year. Who thought it was a good idea the week before playoffs start to have 6
Divisional
teams
matchups
on bye? 6 teams are on bye. The Falcons, the Bears, the Packers, the Colts, the Saints, and Commanders. Like, why are bye weeks the week before playoffs start? It's just so stupid. And yeah, I get Thanksgiving. Everybody wants to play, but no teams were on bye over Thanksgiving, right? Fine. Some people may want to go home and visit their families. So it's okay to give teams bye over a holiday. But the week before playoffs start for fantasy, you can't have 6 teams on bye, man. That's way too many teams to have to pivot around. I think that's bullshit. But first game on the board, the Jets are traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. A lot of fishy lines this week, and we start out with the very fishy one. Buffalo at home favored by 10 points against this Jets defense, over under sitting at 43. I don't get it. Week 9, these two teams faced off. 2017, the Jets won. Then that was with Zach Wilson at quarterback, right? And so why is Buffalo favored by 10 points? I have no idea. Von Miller out for season. Allen and Diggs, obviously the auto starts here. The question I have for you guys is, we saw a glimpse of what James Cook could be. Are you already deploying James Cook? Are you still using Devin Singletary, or are you trying to pivot away from both?
I don't think you can deploy James Cook confidently. I think it's going to be like a split carry situation. If you have to, you deploy Cook, but I think Singletary is still the RB1 there. So he gets the benefit of the doubt, but I think this game will help us determine more if Cook is going to be that full-time starter role.
Man, I mean, I told you guys like 4 weeks ago, I'm going to be very upset at everybody if Cook is still in your free agency thingies, just laying around. So, I mean, I'm on the other end of this, actually. I think there's been a turn of tide, or tides have turned. I think, and that was, we already got what Shobit's saying. I kind of feel like I already experienced that last week when there was no injury designation for Singletary. There's really no reason for Cook to get that many carries, but the team was like, I mean, we saw the progression. Like, I'm not a madman. We saw this, and like, I was like, what is Cook doing in people's free agencies? Like, this guy's way too talented. We've seen what his brother can do, and apparently, like, he says he's better than his brother. So, like, that's enough information for me to have this man on my team. And I think the Bills agree. You know, we saw that. We all were watching this game. We're like, what the fuck is going on with Singletary? Where is he? Is he hurt? But I think that's their way of saying, okay, well, I think Cook, you've shown us enough. I think at least passing work, Cook is going to get a good amount of passing work. And I think that in PPR, half-point PPR leagues, you know, and like you said, Sweetcard, there's 6 teams out this week. There's not much room for cushion for a lot of people. And I'm one of those lot of people. Right now, I'm playing against Shovit, right? Like in this like unnecessary matchup for Shovit. But for me, it's like I need to score the most points I've ever scored in my life. And I have 2 Jets running backs starting right now. So if I had James Cook, I would probably put him in for one of them. I think one of those Jets running backs are going to get taken down for probably Jones, or what's his name? The Fournette guy, White. White. But for now, I'm like, let me just get all the points that the Jets can get on the ground just on my team. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I agree what you're saying, Shovit, and I think there's a lot of truth behind that, especially if they take the lead early. They'd be like, we trust Singletary, let's go. But I don't see this game being a -10 Buffalo being favored kind of a situation. I think it's going to be a lot closer, and I think they're going to need to throw more than they think they are. So we will see. We will see. But I don't think you can go wrong like deploying Singletary or Cook. Like it's not as bad as it was 2-3 weeks ago when you're like, let's just hope what happens. I think the hope is there. I think we've kind of seen a glimpse of the hope now.
Yeah, I mean, and you bring up a good point to where I'm pivoting on the Jets side, right? I mean, Michael Carter healthy, but we don't know. Nobody knows if he's coming back to resume RB1 duty or if what they saw from Zonovan Knight is warranting enough, Zonovan Knight love to get him RB1 duty, or if it's just going to be a straight split. And so, that was going to be my next question is outside of Garrett Wilson, who's the auto start on the Jets right now because he's phenomenal, Carter or Knight, or in Shishot's case, both. I mean, how comfortable do you feel deploying both?
Go ahead, shove it, and then I'll add
No,
something.
I mean, I think, I don't know what to make of that. That's a tough decision. I would lean Knight over Michael Carter just because he's the rookie. He should be getting the starts moving forward. But I'm interested to know what you're gonna do.
Yeah, so I have them both starting, right? And I think there's like valid reasons for both, but I'm definitely leaning Knight if you had to pick one. And that's because number one, eye test, right? We saw what Knight did with very little opportunities. 2 games over double-digit fantasy points when he wasn't even the lead dog either of those games. So you're like, this guy's good, right? And the coaches agree that number 2, like eye test pass, coaches on the team are like, we're getting Zonovan Knight more touches. Like that's huge green flag right there. If you're an owner of one of these players, or if there's opportunity to pick them up, we've seen what the Jets do with their running backs. Any Jets running back that is an RB1 will eat. They will eat. This team is really good at running the ball. And then number 2, right? I call this the Darrell Henderson method, right? Michael Carter is officially in the Darrell Henderson method, right? He's had he was a starting running back coming into the season. Breece Hall took over, regardless of if he was doing good or bad. Michael Carter passed the eye test. He was doing great. Catches balls, runs balls. Why would you not start him, right? There was somebody better that the team thought was better. And side note, the team called Michael Carter the heart and soul of the team before week 1, right? These are the exact quotes Robert Saleh used towards Michael Carter. He is the heart and soul of the team. Well, if he's the heart and soul of the team, how is he losing the starting job every time a new running back comes up, right? So I call that the Darrell Henderson method. And if you see this trend with any other running back in the league, you want to pick up the other guy because the team doesn't trust him for some reason, whatever reason. And I think those 3 things are enough for me to be like, okay, Michael Carter is loved by the team, but does not mean that he's going to get automatic start just because he was a starter at one point. And then everything else I mentioned about Zonovan Knight looking really good. He's a good runner. He's a powerful runner. And he's been a winner since high school. He's won titles all over the field. So, all that being said, I'm starting both of them right now just because I don't want to lose out on those goal line touches. And, what's the worst that could happen? It's like a crapshoot for me at this point. So I don't want to lose any points. For that reason, I'm starting both. But if one person was to be started, I'm banking on a Zonovan Knight breaking free of some sort rather than Carter getting like 10 passing catches or whatever, because I don't see it happening. With the amount of touches Zonovan Knight's going to get, there's no more Michael Carter 10 target situations. It's just not going to exist.
Yeah, again, it's an interesting situation in week 14 that, you still have the opportunity to pick up a running back or start a running back that, was nowhere to be on the scene. Zonovan Knight, week 1 in the NFL. Now he's potentially the RB1 for the Jets. So that's an interesting matchup. I already talked about it. Garrett Wilson, obviously an automatic start. He's just been phenomenal. If you could start Tyler Conklin, if we think the game script's going to be the Jets are going to be down. Mike White, obviously, I trust him a lot more than Zach Wilson. So I feel a little bit better starting pass catchers out of this Jets offense. But I guess the last thing is, in talking about defenses, both these defenses are pretty good. So I don't know. It's in Buffalo. It's in December. It's going to be cold. It could be kind of a hard fought game. I could see some turnovers. I could see some field goals. So I wouldn't feel uncomfortable starting either of these defenses as well. But I expect this game to be a lot tighter than 10 points. Not really sure why that line is the way it is, but there's a lot of fishy lines this week, and I'm sure we'll touch base on all of them.
Yeah, one last thing about these defenses. So I have both of these defenses in multiple leagues, and they've been solid all throughout the year. But it's the playoffs now, and both of these teams have pretty tough matchups moving forward. So just kind of take a look, shove it, because you're the only one in the playoffs in this league so far. I see you picked up the Chiefs defense, getting ready for some. I don't know. I'm not going to say too much right now because I can still face you in the playoffs. Small chance, but
Texas.
Yeah, right. So, Buffalo Jets play Buffalo, so that's a tough matchup for both those teams right now. And then the Jets face Detroit, which is not a good matchup, no matter what we think. Like Detroit's like number 4 in total touchdowns scored or something crazy like that. And then you could use them week 16 for Jacksonville, but that's still 2 more weeks away, right? So, and not many people have the luxury of holding 3 defenses. I do that. I'm currently holding 3 defenses in all 3 of my leagues right now, but that's just because I'm just following the Texans at this point. So be careful. The Jets are nice, but the next 2 games, I'm not sure if you're going to get what you typically get out of the Jets in these next 2 games.
Yeah, I've been holding Kansas City defense, and I almost want to say I picked up Kansas City defense in our league, but then I realized I really don't have much to play for, and I had to pick up somebody else, so I dropped him. So I'd been defense hounding since like week 11. I'm like, okay, who's going to be in the playoffs? Because I have the Cowboys and I have the 49ers defense, and like I have both those defense in my other league, so I'd be really hard pressed not to start one of those 2. But I'm like, who's got the best matchup? Who's playing the Texans? I was like, oh, the Chiefs. The Chiefs are playing the Texans. So the Chiefs are definitely number 1 on my radar as well. As far as if you're in the playoffs, that's a defense that you probably want to have on your roster.
And if you have Cowboys, I think they play the Eagles in I don't know what week, but that's going to be like a playoff week for fantasy.
Yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah, which I still don't mind starting the Cowboys that game. I think even if the Eagles can run the football, I think the Cowboys can generate enough pressure. I think the pass rush is the difference in my opinion. And I think, again, fantasy defenses are so hit and miss. You're going to they're the number 1 defense in fantasy. They've been the most consistent. They're the number 1 pressure rate defense. So I would still trust them. Obviously, if you have an easy pivot, like that's the week the Chiefs play the Texans, then maybe that's a no-brainer. But don't try to get cute and try to fade some team or be like Son this week, starting the Vikings defense, thinking the Lions are a good matchup all of a sudden, which they're
fucking stupid, and he still won, which makes me really mad when God just hates really good fantasy players.
I know, man. That's the worst. When you make dumb decisions and it still pays off, that's been the story of me this year, watching opponents just do dumb things and continue to beat me. But it is what it is. That's it for Jets Bills. Shosho, take us to the next game.
All right, let's talk about the Browns. We don't really get to talk about the Browns outside of the running game all throughout the season, with a little bit of splash of DPJ and a little bit of splash of Amari Cooper. But now I think things get a little bit more interesting. This is round 2 of Deshaun Watson watch. What does this mean immediately for us? It means nothing, okay? Don't get cute. Please don't get cute. I assume you have a starting quarterback at this point, and unless you have a Lamar Jackson and everybody else has picked up people to piss you off, I would not start Deshaun Watson. It's not time. It's not time. We don't have enough information. Even the best of the best, right? He's been top 5 fantasy quarterbacks probably every year he's been a quarterback. And we see what happens when you come back at the first game with little to no game time volume. You look like a mediocre ass dude who's just running around with his head cut off. So round 2, but what better spot than to play against a high-powered offense? Because what does that mean? That means you got to keep up, right? That means you can't just hand the ball off. You can't just bank on your defense to score touchdowns. He's going to have to throw more than he did last game, like point blank, right? And so Bengals D is unfortunately the 3rd in passing touchdowns allowed. So not a good matchup in that sense, but 29th in sacks. So what does that mean, right? So that means they don't generate pressure. They don't get to the back, and that's not a good sign for the Bengals going against one of the most elusive quarterbacks in the league. So this means, putting numbers together, this seems like a game where, Deshaun Watson is just running around the backfield and making big plays, running for big yards. So I just told you not to start him. Don't get cute. But again, if you have a Lamar Jackson and you're trying to pick up a Jared Goff, sure, going against the Vikings, that's fine. But if you ever plan on starting Deshaun Watson at all, and your time of getting cute is running out because this is the last week before playoffs start in a lot of leagues, and you really may only have this opportunity. So this is like a fun factor for me. Like if I'm already made it, I can't go up or down in the standings anyway. Let's just see what happens. Okay, outside of that, don't do it. Don't do it. There's not enough evidence. There's better quarterbacks out there that you can trust, that you've been trusting. Just don't do it unless it's a Ryan Tannehill and you just kind of have to hope and pray or weird shit like that. Deshaun Watson is not recommended to start, but just know that it'll be a fun game to watch because the Bengals do not generate pressure. Nick Chubb, automatic start. No need to talk about anything there. Amari Cooper has a hip injury as of yesterday. Okay, I don't know what kind of hip injury. If it's a pointer, then it's like a Fournette situation. He may not play this week. But the talks are he is trending towards playing. I don't know how much to trust. I don't know what to think about that. Wait till game time or maybe like tomorrow to see what further information they have, but you got to have somebody ready because it's a 1 p.m. game, and if you just throw them out there, and you're going to be really sad. So just get somebody ready just in case, but I have a feeling he's going to play. If he does not play and DPJ is hovering around your free agency, it's time to pick him up and replace him in that spot, especially if you don't have a Palmer or something backed up, ready to go. Then you need to start DPJ because they're playing the Bengals. They're going to be down. They're going to have to throw. It's just all the things add up for a good DPJ day if Amari Cooper doesn't go. And Njoku is finally healthy. There's no injury designation there. So, he has been one of the top 8 tight ends this year. Nothing crazy. He's not dropping you 20 points or 18 points or crazy things like that, but he's getting you a nice floor of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So, and that's exactly what we want at this point in the season if you're replacing him for somebody just for the time being, or you just lost a big tight end or whatever the case. I'm taking 8 points easily at this point in the season for my tight end spot. That's enough for the Browns. From the Bengals perspective, this is the number 1 time of possession team in the league. They have many opportunities for everybody to succeed just because they just convert every third down after every third down. They're good at everything but running the ball. They cannot run the ball. They're 27th in the league in yards per run. But they don't have to run the ball, or you don't have to worry about the running backs running the ball because the running backs are getting 8 to 10 targets a game. So I would actually prefer that, right? If you're a fantasy football owner and your running back is on this team and you're looking at this and you're like, damn, they're not getting much yards per carry, but they're getting tons and tons of work. And we just got information earlier today that this whole Samaje Perine thing is a thing of the past. Mixon is their guy moving forward, and he's going to get as much volume as he can tolerate. The only issue here, it's very dumb. Don't get me wrong. If anything, they should split it right down the middle. Yeah. But the only, we talked about this last couple of days, or last couple of episodes, there's a huge chance for him to hit his head again and just not play for a really long time once again, because these post-concussive throwing players back into the game after concussion, the post-concussion, reconcussion situations are really high. So not sure why they're doing that. Very aggressive, very unnecessary, especially because Perine's doing just fine. But they're going with Mixon, so you can put Mixon back in your lineup. And the only 2 other players we need to talk about is Chase and Higgins, and you just start them. There's really nothing to worry about here. The only thing is if the Browns do really bad, but I don't think so. I think Deshaun Watson's still a pretty good quarterback. He may make some stupid plays here and there because of the rust, but I don't see him being unusable late in the fourth quarter. I think they're going to keep trying to throw, and I think the Burrows are going to just, they're not one of the Raiders. They're going to keep going, and they're not good at running the ball, so they got to throw. So that just means good plays for the receiving end, and then the tight end Hayden Hurst. That's just
He's out.
Okay,
yep.
So you can dabble in with whoever's backing up there, but I don't know. It's up to you. At this point, he's probably he would be an immediate tight end 10 to 14 or something like that. So if you're wanting to dabble with that, go ahead. But I'm sure there are a couple of other tight ends that have a much higher chance of catching the ball or scoring a touchdown, like Dolchich and some of those other guys available. So yeah.
Yeah, hopefully you didn't start Foster Moreau like I did in our league.
He dropped a touchdown, didn't he? Or am I tripping? Or did he dropped something? But I don't know.
Unless I missed it, the only time I even recognized him getting the ball thrown was when he ran into Keelan Cole, and Keelan Cole got hurt and then walked off the field. And I didn't even know if that ball was targeted to him or Keelan Cole. So I'm like, wow, they really just don't give a shit about Foster Moreau. But I'm like, when they don't even give a shit about Devontae Adams this game, why are they going to give a shit about Foster Moreau? So it was just a horrible, horrible situation for Foster Moreau starters.
More reason for you to hate the Raiders.
Yeah, fuck the Raiders.
All right. Next up, this takes us to the Texas Showdown. The Houston Texans are coming to the better Texas City at the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas is favored by 17.5 points, over under at 44.
Whoa. You said that so casually. I've never seen that line in my life. 17.5-point favorites. Let that sink in. The Dallas Cowboys are favored by more than 2 touchdowns and a field goal. That is insanity. Insanity.
I mean, the Cowboys are the 4th most scoring offense, and the Texans are the 10th most allowing points per game. So, it makes sense. 17.5. We saw that what Dallas did with 33 points.
Yeah. But that was just Matt Ryan giving interceptions after interceptions, right? That's not going to repeat. But like the Rams and Raiders are a blueprint for it's the NFL, right? It's pretty crazy that a team in the NFL is still favored by 18 points against an opponent. That's wild.
I know. I've seen 14, 17.5 is absolutely high.
Yeah.
Absolutely high.
Yeah. Can't remember the last time we saw that.
No, I don't either. All right, so Texans, fantasy-wise, the guys you want to start here are Nico Collins. Brandon Cooks is out. He's not playing.
They're both out. Yep, they're both out.
Is Nico Collins out too?
Yeah, they're both out.
They're both out.
Wow, that just changes everything. All right, who do you?
Yeah, there's nobody. There's nobody. You're not starting anybody. Don't get cute. Don't be like, oh, there's nobody. There's got to be somebody catching the ball. Yeah, they may lose 65-3 based on what Vegas thinks, right? So nobody's catching the ball there.
Well, you're starting Dameon Pierce as from running back position.
I'm not. He's actually on my bench right now. I'm starting Pacheco over Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, I mean it's good. It's a tough. It's like he's like RB3 probably this week, and this game, given that Dameon, but he's kind of on. He had a pretty decent game last week. He saw better yards per carry. He had the yardage that you want to see. So just for the sake of starting someone from the Texans, I say Dameon Pierce is the only close option. I didn't know Nico Collins was out. I know Brandon Cooks was definitely out, but okay,
yep, they're both out. And Derek Stingley Jr. is out, so they got nobody.
They're just 17.5. I mean, Vegas, I guess it makes sense now. On the Cowboys side, you're going to start Dak Prescott. You're going to start Tony Pollard. You'll start Zeke. The Texans give up a lot of yards as far as rushing yards go. They give up a lot of points, so it could be a ugly game. CeeDee Lamb, you're going to definitely start him, and especially with Derek Stingley being out, I mean that's just even more. And CeeDee Lamb is a must start for sure. So you're going to start. Michael Gallup is one of those guys that I don't know if you definitely want to start him just quite yet. You still probably want to watch and see if he's going to be, he gets those red zone opportunities. So, flip a coin. And if you need him, start Gallup. But I would shy away from that. Dalton Schultz, he's going to get the start just from a tight end standpoint. He's still seeing the targets. He's getting the reps on the field. So you're going to start Dalton Schultz. But yeah, this matchup, man, it's Texans are going back to Davis Mills. So Davis Mills is going to get the start. No Kyle Allen. And it's just going to...
They're throwing Davis Mills back in when both their top 2 receivers are out. Hey, man, both the guys you're going to usually throw the ball to aren't playing. So you're all of a sudden the starter again. Where's the logic? Somebody make that make sense to me, please.
I think you just have to kind of see what you're going to do moving forward. Like everything now is just prepping for next year, right? So is Davis Mills the answer or not? Chances are the answer is no.
But they benched him for Kyle Allen already in like the middle of the season. So clearly they don't even think he's the answer. Why is he getting thrown? He's getting thrown into you're playing the Dallas Cowboys. You're underdogs by 18 points. You have no receivers to throw the football to. Oh, and by the way, the best cornerback on the defense is also out.
No, the plan here is which quarterback would you rather have killed? And I think they're like, you know what? We need Allen for backing up next year, so let's just have this guy die.
And he probably will. God. I mean, yeah, and so it's going to probably be a really, really, really ugly game. Cowboys probably score a lot of points. Like I said, fourth most scoring offense versus a team that allows the 10th most points per game. So good luck, Texans. 17.5. That's a pretty big spread, but it's definitely doable.
It's going to feel so good when the fucking Texans win this game. It's going to be so good.
I mean, if you're like a bettor, you're never taking a spread this high in the NFL. You're just not. You're never taking the Cowboys minus 17.5. So the only logical bet here is the Texans plus 17.5. Like that's the only logical bet. Yeah, the Cowboys could win by 65-3, but in reality, it'd be stupid to take the Cowboys and start the game with being 18 points in the hole to cover your spread. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's the NFL, man. It's the NFL. We talk about weird lines. I'm going to turn into another weird line. The Minnesota Vikings, the 10-2 Minnesota Vikings are traveling to the 5-7 Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions coming off a amazing victory against the Jacksonville Jaguars in which they put up 40 points. And they were underdogs, might I add, at home against Jacksonville. They were underdogs by 1 point. They put up 40 points against Jacksonville. The Vikings last week beat the Jets, who are really good. They scored 26 points against that amazing defense. So the next week, what does Vegas do? Vegas somehow thinks that based on the way the prior week transpired, all of a sudden the Lions deserve a tremendous amount of respect, and they are now favored against the Minnesota Vikings at home by 2 points. Over under sitting at 51. All of everything about this is so fishy to me. Week 3, these two teams played against each other. Vikings won 28-24. The over hit. The Vikings covered the spread. The line just makes little to no sense. Anytime in my years and years of betting, anytime I see something that is too good to be true, there's a reason it's too good to be true. Like, everybody in the world should be taking the Minnesota Vikings money line here, right? They're the better team. They're 10-2. You're getting them as underdogs to just win the game against the Detroit Lions. But why is the line the way it is? I have absolutely no idea. You guys are going to have to explain it to me a little bit more after I go through all these numbers that also don't favor the fact that the Lions should be favored. Kirk Cousins is going up against the 32nd ranked fantasy defense to opposing quarterbacks. He had 18.3 fantasy points against Detroit in week 3. Right? So you're deploying Dalvin Cook. You're deploying Justin Jefferson, who also has more incentive to have a better game because the last time these two teams played, he only had 3 catches for 14 yards, one of his shittier games. So he has more incentive. TJ Hawkinson, revenge game. He's coming back to Detroit. They traded him away. He's going to have extra incentive to want to win this game too. And I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Thielen is relevant this game as well, because I'm expecting a shootout. Vikings defense sucks. Detroit puts up a lot of points. So the Vikings are going to have to spread the ball around and use pretty much every weapon that they have. Jared Goff on the other end, because they're going up against Minnesota, he's startable. He's had great games. He said he's playing the best football of his life, which on paper, even that seems to add up. Maybe outside of the Super Bowl run, this is the best football Goff has ever played. Shovit, you and I talked about it. DeAndre Swift finally is the RB1. So now, like last week, I guess, but you can start DeAndre Swift as the RB1 for this team, but I still don't feel uncomfortable starting Jamal Williams as well. I think they both see work. I think one guy rushes the ball. Swift, they use a lot in the passing game, and Jamal Williams leads the league in touchdowns. So, it'd be stupid to put that guy on your bench, in my opinion, especially against the Vikings defense, where I think points are going to be had. Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously not a start there. And then kicker, Badgley is going against this bend don't break defense, right? This defense that loves to let people basically in the red zone any which way possible, and then somehow make stops here and there. And the Vikings are 31st against opposing kickers. So Badgley seems like a great play in this matchup. But long story short, Christian Darrisaw is supposed to be back. He's cleared concussion protocol. That was the biggest kind of X factor for the Vikings, losing their left tackle, Kirk not getting enough protection, and Aiden Hutchinson on the other side, right? Who's going to block this guy? But Darrisaw should be back, barring them just wanting to give him a little bit of extra rest. Shosho, you mentioned it. The reconcussing a concussion is scary. It happens a lot more than not nowadays, it seems like. So I think, this is the cornerstone of your franchise from a left tackle perspective. So they could definitely play it safe and not play him, even though he's cleared. And then Cam Dantzler, the cornerback, is also back for the Minnesota Vikings. So they are getting healthier. Harrison Smith is questionable. That's one thing to consider. But other than that, again, at worst, at the absolute worst, maybe you could make this game a pick'em. Just make it a coin toss. But in what reality has Detroit justified themselves to be favorites against the Minnesota Vikings? I just do not understand the line whatsoever.
Dude, I hate to be on this end, but I kind of get it. I get it. Just because the Lions have not been able to be stopped. They can't be stopped. No one stopped them. No, everybody just outscored them, right? The Lions have not had a bad day from an offensive perspective. They're running the ball. They're getting in the end zone, running the ball. They're throwing the ball like crazy. And guess what they face? They face a 32nd ranked defense now. And you know what the main kicker for me is? Harrison Smith, our heart and soul of that defense, has a neck injury. Neck injuries are not something that, he could start this game and then leave by the end of the second quarter, right? It's one of those situations. And then what? And then we put a bunch of it's already a bunch of randos. There's a reason we're 32nd. Right? So it comes down to who can outshoot who. And I still don't think the Vikings have been unleashed on offense. Not one game have I seen. It kind of seems like a Zimmer, but a little bit less Zimmer offense. Yep. I'm not sold on this KOC unleashing, doing this crazy. I haven't seen anything. And over there, I'm watching the Lions just murder people with all kinds of weapons, doing all kinds of plays. And guess what? They just got the best receiver in the draft starting this week, right? So that part of it, just points towards, oh, they're gonna expand the field more. Okay, well that sucks. They already have one of the best slot receivers in the league. Well, that fucking sucks. They have two-headed monsters that coming out of the backfield that can catch the ball too. Well, that sucks. So everything points towards the Lions scoring more points than the Vikings to me, because the Vikings are still the Vikings at the end of the day, and we haven't seen them even do anything like the Lions do at any point during the season. We're still doing this like play. I don't know, man. I just haven't seen enough from this offense. Like, a lot to blame on the defense, for sure, for damn sure. But the offense hasn't done enough in the second quarter and the third quarter for me to be like, all right, we're going to go to the Lions and we're going to outscore them. You know, like, I don't feel comfortable.
I'm with you. Like, with how much we've seen how clutch the Vikings offense can be when they need it badly. Like in the fourth quarter, final drive, they need it. Like Kirk's unreal. And then the offense is unreal. They execute, they go down, they score, and they win the game. That's why they're 10-2. But why is that sense of urgency not the same in the second quarter, in the third quarter, right? Like, it's the same song and dance where it's like, yes, this year we're actually finding ways to win those football games, those tight contested games that we've lost in the past. But we still, like you said, haven't seen this offense be like, we're going to put up 40 points. And for the first game ever, the defense, can allow 30 and we still win by 10. Like, that just doesn't happen. It's like, oh God, defense can't stop anybody. Offense, we got to rely on you again. And then like when we're up and the offense gets the ball back, a lot of times, oh, it's just 3 and out. We're just going to give it right back to the defense. So it's like, never are they taking that next step to be like, instead of being up 7, let's go up 14. I agree. It hasn't happened yet. But with all that being said, I still think Detroit is getting a little too much respect. Like, yes, they scored a lot of points on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Is anybody taking the Jags seriously? Not really, right? Before that, they lost to Buffalo. They did put up 25 against that defense, but the Vikings also put up 30 plus against that defense, right? So the Vikings are capable of scoring. They beat the Giants. The Giants suck. The Giants are frauds. They beat the Bears. The Bears are frauds, and they gave up 30 points to the Bears. They let the Bears score 30 points on them, and Justin Fields, all he had to do was run the football. And then before that, they beat the Packers, in which they scored 15 points. So like, I haven't been impressed with any single one of these Lions actual victories, but their losses, they play close. But does that sound familiar? It's the same fucking Lions from last year. They play hard, but they just never actually get the W at the end. So it just seems a little disrespectful to the Minnesota Vikings. Despite the way we're winning, we're still winning. Despite the way we're winning, we're 10-2. Despite the way we're playing, despite the way the Lions are playing and how good their offense looks, they're 5-7. They're 5-7. They already lost to us. So I just don't get the line. It seems disrespectful. Maybe it's just a little bit of me being a Vikings fan and being emotional. But again, anytime I see something like this that's too good to be true, I am terrified for this game because, Shovit, you and I talk about Vegas knowing shit all the time. The over-under of that game that tied last week was 40.5, and the final score was 20-20. So Vegas clearly knows something. They have algorithms that are just beyond comprehension. Yeah. So that's what worries me. That's the only reason I think the Vikings could lose this game. But what I'm talking about as far as who's on what side, who's on this side, I still expect the Vikings to win.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like matchup-wise, Vikings should still win the game despite the Lions are doing well in the last 5 games or whatever. But I feel like the Vikings are also due for a regression, right? Like, the Vikings are probably the worst 10-2 team of all time, honestly, like stats-wise, right? As far as points differential, DVOA, like comparing all the 10-2 teams that have been out there. And so, like, in terms of like the algorithms and just the fact that the Lions are kind of up and coming, like it makes sense for Vegas to favor the Lions, to be on top of it. Whereas if the smart money goes to the Lions and smart money goes to the Lions and the Vikings are favored, then they lose a lot of money. So I kind of feel like that's kind of what's going on here. But I mean, I still think that the Vikings have a definitely strong chance to win the game. But I kind of get it. I kind of get the -2 line.
It's just 32nd ranked defense, man. Like what the fuck are we supposed to do? Like, what is this offense supposed to do? Put up 40 points and then lose 40 or 45? Like, it's gonna be exactly that. Mark my fucking words. I'm gonna record this shit and post it on my Instagram. It's gonna be really, really high scoring game versus really, really high scoring game. Offense does everything they can. Defense gonna allow something in the last 18 seconds and make things really uncomfortable. It's just the same fucking shit as last year, except we're winning. That is the only difference.
You know what? If we are to lose this game, but we score 40 points, I'm not going to be upset. You know why? Because the Vikings haven't scored 40 fucking points all year. Offense, prove me wrong. Score 40 and lose. And then I'll truly be like, wow, okay, so our offense actually can, score every fucking time when they need to. And the defense is the reason they're giving up 45. But the offense hasn't even put up 40 yet. So
the only teams that can score 40 are the teams that don't run every fucking first down and every fucking second down, right? Like, we're not set up to score 40. That's the shitty part. It's like I don't like this fucking team. Like it's not a good. Well, we can't compete with the Chiefs. We like the Bills. Yeah, it was a good game. It was like nice hard fought game. Fumbles in the end zone, all kinds of shit. But like mano y mano, like offense still hasn't done it. We haven't seen it, and the defense is just so bad. I'm so shocked. Like, Shelby, you're dead on. This is definitely the worst 10-2 team I've ever seen because no 10-2 team probably in the history of football has had a 32nd ranked defense. There's just no way.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Over under 51. Detroit favored at home by 2 points, sitting at 5-7. Minnesota at 10-2, looking to go 11-2 and sweep the Lions in the division.
A game where a lot less points scored than that game, sweetheart. The Jaguars are visiting the Titans. Tennessee's favored by 3.5. Over-under is at 41. The Jaguars have a middle-of-the-pack offense. They have a middle-of-the-pack defense. They have a middle-of-the-pack special teams. They're hovering around 15 to 17 in almost every point category you can think of. It's just straight up middle of the pack. However, they're facing a 31st ranked pass defense that the Titans have. So, mano y mano, right? Like something's got to give. And I think the Titans are actually that bad in the passing defense category that even a mediocre Jags team is going to show some pretty good numbers on the board for you. The Titans have allowed 22 passing touchdowns this year, which ranks them 29th in the league as far as passing touchdowns allowed. I expect another pretty good game, 2 to 3 touchdowns from our homie. However, Lawrence is just not getting the stuff done from a healthy standpoint. Like he's got this toe injury, and most toe injuries you can either tell like, oh, this shit looks bad, let's take you out of the game, or hey, let's try to work through it a couple of days, and then you kind of have a better answer after like 1 or 2 days of practice. However, this is a weird situation. I don't exactly know what the exact type of injury it is, because it doesn't seem like a turf toe because they're saying immediately, right? Like when the injury happened, it looked really bad. And we're like, oh, this guy's not coming back. Yeah. Comes back. Like, right? They did something, probably injected him with something, did whatever, came back and played. And then immediately after the game, might be out for the following week. And you're like, oh shit. Okay. The next day might be out the following week. And then, he's practicing Friday and he feels good. So it's like, the fuck? Like it's not adding up. Like we didn't see like a positive progression towards healing. We just saw like pain, feel good to play on Friday. So it's like, I don't know. Sounds like he's going to play, but probably going to be injected with all kinds of shit. But this is more of a dynasty type of issue. Like he might really fuck this toe up if something happens this week because not adding up. Like doctors don't just let things like this happen unless there's like injections happening behind the scenes. But anyways, he should play now that he feels good or whatever. So that means the receivers should do what they've been normally doing this year. And that's Christian Kirk doing good things. Zay Jones, one of them tends to always do better than the other. We just can't tell which one. But from a target perspective, it's also kind of hard because, beginning of the season, Kirk was kind of just soaking up the volume. And then now Zay Jones kind of has this chemistry developed with Lawrence. So we don't really know. But for the first time this year, I'm going to go ahead and jump on the Ingram wagon just because 6 teams are out. Tight ends are kind of lax. And then he likes Ingram in the end zone. He likes to throw him on the outside, the out route or like a Wes Welker route to the outside. He really looks for Ingram in those situations. So, and it is the Titans 29th ranked pass defense. So what do you have to lose, right? Like that's a pretty good guess. If you're going to start Ingram, it's probably a good time to start him in one of these matchups. ETN, again, seems pretty healthy to play. I think he's going to get back to getting his 20 touches or whatever the hell, something along those lines. So I'm not too worried about the Jaguars. I expect normal Jaguars things here, especially because the defense is just so bad they're facing against. The Titans, however, the Jaguars are 28th in passing yards, right? So, they're pretty bad too. So why are you not talking about this being a shootout like the other games showed? Well, it's because there's been no consistency from a throwing standpoint on either of these teams, right? Jaguars much better, obviously, but like I said, they're like middle of the pack, even from a throwing perspective. Titans, however, have no throwing game. Their best receiver, Treylon Burks, is out. So who are they going to go to? Their usuals that we've given so many opportunities. I remember Sweetheart picked up Woods. Remember week 3 or something? Oh yeah, maybe something here if nothing. Well, it continues to be nothing. There continues to be nothing. They don't like throwing the ball. Shove it last couple of episodes ago. throughout the blueprint for the Titans game, and that's just to run the ball, right? Run the ball, get Henry hot, and then just control the clock. Like it's fucking like it's 1942 Bears kind of shit going on here. Like, what are they doing, right? Like something's got to change. They should have picked up some receivers. This team's not out of the playoffs. Like they're very much in it, and they're still rolling with that 1942 strategy. So we'll see, right? We will see. The Jaguars do have a bad passing game, so maybe there's something shows up here because we've seen some signs from Tannehill going deep to Treylon Burks. Maybe Westbrook Etienne or whatever the fuck his name is, Westbrook Ikine. Maybe he's going to have one of those prayer days. So if you have a deeper league and you're hoping for points and you're desperate, like myself, one of those situations, and you have literally nobody, like I don't hate you for starting Westbrook Ikine, right? It's like one of those like prayers. You're just hoping, and there's far worse players that you could put up there and pray for rather than having a Westbrook Ikine, which we've kind of seen answer some of these prayers in the past in the weirdest ways. So not trying to tell you to start them, but there's worse players that you can pray and see what happens. But yeah, so that's basically it. And then Henry on the other end, you're just going to start him. He's not having the best of seasons the last couple of days. The two weeks ago, he had a really poor running day, like a 30-something yards total, but he salvaged it with that really long 75-yard catch that didn't end up becoming a touchdown. And then last week, he didn't get that 75-yard catch, so he just looked really human with the 30-something yards rushing. So, I think, unfortunately, for Henry owners, I think a lot of that's going to continue just because the Jaguars are much better on the passing end, and I think they're going to take a lead here at some point. And the Titans are going to have to be forced to throw the ball, and then we're just going to have to see what happens at that point. But I do not expect like a 25 to 30 carry Henry day just because the Jaguars are a little bit better, and then the 29th ranked passing defense, man, like give me that 10 out of 10 days. I don't care what my offense is. If I'm going against really bad defenses like that, I expect the throwing game on that side to be pretty prolific.
Yeah, don't sleep on their tight end, man. And I got his pronunciation. Yeah. He's been annoyed. He's been annoyed. So he went on Twitter and he was like, guys, it's not that hard to pronounce. So his first name, he abbreviates it. So it's just Chig, Chig, Chig. And his last name is Okonkwo. So Chig Okonkwo. I have liked what I've seen from him. And again, the Titans need people to catch the football. So when they see somebody catching the football, they're like, oh, maybe we should get him the ball more. Like they kind of did with Treylon Burks. And then he did good. And now Treylon Burks is out. We know what Robert Woods is. We know what Westbrook Ikine is. These guys have had opportunities to step up and be the guy, and they're not, right? So they're still searching. They're still searching for answers, and I think they're going to grasp onto any straws they can. And right now, the new straw that they're trying to grasp onto is Chig Okonkwo. So again, tight ends, I wish I would have started Chig Okonkwo over Foster Moreau. So you could do a lot worse than Chig Okonkwo.
That takes us to the NFC East showdown. Eagles at New York Giants. Philadelphia is favored by 7 points. Over under is 44.5. Fantasy-wise on Eagles' side, you're probably going to start everyone you have been starting. Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Those are all guys that are money in fantasy world this year, so you're going to continue to deploy them. On the Giants side, Daniel Jones, he's a guy that can, definitely use his legs to get the point. So if you need a streaming option, Daniel Jones is not terrible. I mean, he's going against a tough defensive matchup with the Eagles, but I'm a person who has Justin Fields. Justin Fields is on a bye week for me, so I am looking at Daniel Jones, and I may have to start him. It's between Daniel Jones.
Do you have Fields in other leagues too?
Yeah. I've in both my leagues I've got Fields and Daniel Jones or Mac Jones, who I'm trying to figure out who to start in that, because it's a tough it's slim pickings in terms of QB goes. So you may want to start him. Saquon Barkley, he's questionable with a neck injury, but you just look into that as far as on Sundays goes. Before Sunday, make sure you have a backup ready if Saquon Barkley isn't good. He says he's good, but and this is a very important game where the Giants are they're sixth in wild card right now, but right behind them is the Washington Redskins, who would, if the Giants lose, the Commanders and the Giants would have the same record, and then with more divisional matchups, that's going to be even closer than you would want it to be. So the Giants really definitely need this win to continue their playoff chances. From the receiving side, Darius Slayton is a guy that's been the wide receiver 1 for the Giants. He has a tough matchup against James Bradbury and Darius Slay. So you may want to start him if hopefully you have other options, but if not, then Darius Slayton gets to start just because he's wide receiver 1. And Daniel Bellinger, he's seeing 97% of the snaps, and he's getting targets. Like I think he had like 4 to 6 targets last game. So it's hard to find tight ends, but more and more, just the fact that he's on the field gives you that hope that maybe you can get some tight touchdowns late in the red zone or something like that. That's the only reason why you would start Daniel Bellinger. But this matchup, it's going to be tough for the Giants. Giants will want to run the ball with Saquon Barkley, but with no Saquon Barkley, I don't see how they end up actually winning this game. The Achilles heel for the Eagles has been their running game, but they played the Titans last week, and Derrick Henry didn't have a productive game. So Saquon Barkley, who is also in the same kind of category where he's not producing as well, may also not have that great of game against this Eagles front forward that is a little bit more revamped now. They got Ndamukong Suh and then the other guy that I can't remember right now.
Linval Joseph.
Their running defense has stepped up. And as far as their pass defense goes for the Eagles, they're playing again. James Bradbury passer rating allowed 43.2, which is number 1 in the NFL. And then Darius Slay, his guy on the other side of the field, passer rating allowed of 53.2, who is number 3. Second is Sauce Gardner, by the way, who allowed a lot of catches last week with Justin Jefferson. So
yeah,
what
do you expect?
Yeah. But that's a tough matchup for any offenses. So it's going to be tough for the Giants. Philadelphia, their running game's rolling, their passing game's rolling. I expect them to come out on top and win this game as well.
I've been incredibly impressed, man. We we went into the season wondering if Jalen Hurts was going to take the next step as a passer, and everything I've seen, I've been like, holy shit, like this is the dude. He is a dude. He's incredible, and it doesn't hurt to have AJ Brown, who is insane, and Devontae Smith, who might be the most underappreciated, under the radar, like would be a wide receiver 1 on most teams guy. Like, I mean, and they're missing Dallas Goedert. Like, just every time we talk about the Eagles, I'm terrified because they have no weaknesses. You talk about the run stopping defense, but even then, again, Jordan Davis is going to come back, and they've got big fat guys there now that, who have lost a step, but they're still gonna man that middle. So yeah, this seems like a more lopsided matchup than the 7 points, in my opinion, despite it being a division. Like the Giants, who are they going to throw the football to? And if Saquon is all you have and he's dealing with a neck injury, like you're one injury away from like having nobody on offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I was watching some film on the Giants like a while back, and they do all these weird things on defense to kind of confuse the quarterbacks and offensive scheme. So they rely on a lot of takeaways. So the only way I feel like the Giants are going to win is if they win the turnover battle. But the Eagles
turnover battle against Jalen Hurts, it's just, man, that's a losing battle.
Ever since the Commanders game where they gave up 4 turnovers, they have not been giving up a lot of turnovers, after that game. So it's not looking good for the Giants.
Yeah, that game, you guys just need to forget that game. Like those things happen. Those are fumbles. Like fumbles aren't predictable. Interceptions are much more like accurate descriptions of like a bad play. But fumbles, man, like shit happens.
Mm-hmm.
Next game on the board, we have the Ravens traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers, who are surprisingly favored by 2 points, over under at 36.5. These two teams are playing 2 times in the final 4 weeks of the season, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are more than likely going to face Tyler Huntley, with Lamar Jackson listed as doubtful. Pittsburgh are a little bit hot, winners of 2 in a row and 3 of their last 4. So Mike Tomlin really wants to get that back to 500 and that 500 streak alive. Fantasy wise, again, Tyler Huntley, we talk about his legs. That's what makes him fantasy relevant. 41 yards rushing last week and a touchdown on the ground. So he seems like he has a floor. Pittsburgh's pass rush with TJ Watt, outside of all that, like it's not like their entire defensive unit has been, phenomenal. So I don't feel uncomfortable starting Huntley if you're desperate. And if you're, a field zoner, or if you have a guy on a bye or somebody's hurt, like Lamar in this situation. But outside of Huntley, I have no fucking idea, guys. Gus or Drake. They love Gus Edwards. Drake does really good, and then they just don't care. Drake plays really hard, and they just don't care. They don't reward the hot hand. They just seem to have an affinity for Gus Edwards. So if he's healthy, he is, in my opinion, the safer option, just because that's where I think John Harbaugh likes to go. And then the receiving core, just Demarcus Robinson, Duvernay. If you're starting those guys, more than likely you're in the consolation bracket, or you're in a league that's got too many players and you need to get out of that. Like 14-man, 16-man, 18-man. I don't care. Get out of those leagues. I don't want to play in a fantasy league where I have to start Duvernay. Like that's just not fun. Like, is that fun for you guys? Because it's not fun for me. So get out of those leagues so you don't ever have to start those receivers. Mark Andrews, obviously you have to start him because tight ends are a crapshoot, and he's the second best tight end in the league. And then Shishot, I was going to bring this up. Tucker, you start Tucker against Pittsburgh, or do you find a better matchup?
Dude, at this point, I only have Tucker in our league, and like I said, just hoping and praying. So let's see if Tucker can get me 21 fantasy points this week.
It's a good week to do it. They have nobody. It's all backups. Hopefully, they just get into the red zone every possession, and they can't convert. And then
remember Huntley, dude. Is everybody forgetting what Huntley did last year?
Nope.
Or year before last? When was that?
It was last year. Yeah,
he was pretty. He was almost better than Lamar in many aspects. I feel like they scored. Andrews had two of his best games with Huntley and not Lamar. So
Huntley was the reason Andrews finished where he finished in fantasy, because I feel like all of his biggest boom weeks were the minute Huntley came in. It's like all Huntley did was throw the ball to Andrews.
They just didn't win games.
No.
They lost 6 straight after, they had a solid first half, and then, they didn't win games, but that was not all of Huntley's fault.
Yeah.
But
I think it makes Huntley an intriguing, streamable option, again, like I mentioned with the bye weeks and the injuries. But again, the rest of that offense, besides Andrews and Tucker, crapshoot. Running backs and receivers, the two most prominent positions, I don't even know who you should start. So please just steer away or flip a coin. On the Steelers side, Najee, not a great matchup because the Ravens are good against the run, but I don't think you can bench Najee, especially Shovit in your situation. It's not like you have tremendous amounts of depth or other options to pivot towards. Pat Freiermuth has been nice. He's got that floor, so you start him. Pickens has been the guy, although he had his weird dud week last week, which, I'm just going to chalk that up to whatever and just put that out the window. 2 targets, 1 catch for 2 yards. Probably unhappy if you started him last week. But despite Deontay having a little bit of a decent game and Pickens having not a good game last week, I still don't think it's time to pivot back to Deontay Johnson. You don't start Deontay Johnson.
Probably out this game, or he's severely hurt for whatever reason. I forget what it was. I saw the notification today. Yeah. So he's injured in some way.
Yeah. So then maybe you do start.
He's questionable, but I don't know if he is out just quite yet.
Okay.
But he is questionable.
Yeah. So, I mean, either way, I still think you stray away from DJ. And if you're going to start a receiver on this team, it's Pickens.
I'm starting Pickens this week.
Pickens, Muth, and Najee are the plays on the Steelers side. But again, interesting game because you have a backup quarterback. The Ravens offense is just such a question mark with literally nobody. There's no reliable receiver. They don't have one set running back. So I don't really know what to expect. But Pittsburgh's defense has not been great. So I'm expecting more of a tighter contest, low scoring affair. And, probably the field goal kickers are going to have their day.
Yeah. TJ Watt is having some pectoral issues as well.
No.
So I know.
Hopefully it's the other pec. And it's not the same pec.
Yeah. Remember when we talked about if his pecs were too big, or was that Watt? Who is that? Oh, Daniil Hunter. Remember,
pecs
I was like,
too big.
Yeah, exactly.
That was something.
Good time. People on their pecs.
And then J.K. Dobbins comes back from the IR, so more reason to not even look at the running back situation on Drake or Gus. But I kind of want to roll my dices with J.K. Dobbins just to pick him up, keep him on the bench, and see what happens.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
And then, but definitely don't.
He hasn't been taken off the IR yet, though. That was my concern too. I'm like, he's on track he's practicing and everything, but they haven't removed him from the IR, and it's already Friday.
Yeah, something to monitor. But yeah, I mean, with him back, the idea going into this season was Dobbins was going to be the guy, and he kind of wasn't. Even when he was healthy, he kind of wasn't. He had one decent game, and it wasn't even based on yards or carries. It was just getting into the end zone. So nothing has led me to believe that Dobbins is the guy, and he's got an injury history, man. He's got an injury history. So my fear is that he's going to come back and get hurt, or they're going to ease him in. So I don't trust anybody in the backfield.
Before we're done with the Ravens, have you guys seen the Italian Job?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Have you seen Inside Man?
Yeah, Denzel Washington.
Okay, well, let me tell you a quick story about a heist even bigger than that one, okay? So I told you guys I traded Lamar Jackson for Justin Fields 2 weeks ago on a Thursday. And so this is dude, in 12 years of fantasy playing.
Preface, by the way.
Huh?
I love this preface, the start of it. It was amazing.
Oh yeah. 12 years of fantasy playing. I have never outwitted a whole fucking league ever in my life as bad as this one. This is what I did. I traded straight up Lamar Jackson for Justin Fields. The guy, Justin Fields, was coming off of an injury. There was no guarantee. Lamar Jackson wasn't hurt yet, and he just come out of a 25-point game. So I was like, this is time to trade him. And I also have Tua sitting on my bench, by the way. So it's I don't lose much by making this trade. So I was like, let's do this trade. He did it. Nobody complained. Everything's great, right? I am ranked. There's a 3-way tie between second, third, and fourth. And then this guy's first place that I just made this trade with, right? So let alone like Lamar Jackson gets hurt and Justin Fields is back to Justin Field things, right? And in this league, our waiver system is at the end of every week, the worst player gets the first waiver, right?
That's the worst.
So hear me out. So this guy, his other quarterback is somebody serviceable, right? So he's not dead. He's not screwed. So, and he has to start. It's IDP league. So you have 3 players that have to start. 2 of his IDP players are on bye. He has no droppable players in his team. So he can either drop his IDP players or drop Lamar Jackson, who he just made this trade for. And the 2 IDP players that he has are Bobby Okereke and this guy from the Jaguars. They're both in the top 5 in IDP. What got him to being number 1? So this guy's in a huge pickle, right? So what does he do? He drops Lamar Jackson. He drops him. He had to. He could have dropped it Chris Godwin, Joshua Palmer, right? So I was thinking drop Palmer, right? Like why would you not? But he doesn't have any other wide receiver options. And like if he loses another wide receiver, then he has to pick from like a bunch of garbage. So he's playing it safe because he has another quarterback. So he had to drop Lamar Jackson.
Wow.
And the waiver period just ended for Wednesday this morning, Friday. The new waiver period starts.
You picked up Lamar.
I picked up Lamar. He's back on my team.
Oh my God. Oh,
got Justin
this is it.
Free.
This guy, we got to shout him out. He's got to listen to this and we got to make fun of him. This is the biggest fleece in the history of fleecing.
His name is Seth, and he's just going to have to watch me with all the quarterbacks.
Fucking Seth.
Should he, what should he have done? I feel like he should have just taken the L and like not.
No.
Number one. Who's this? Who's the L? This is the last week. Go to his team right now. Go to his team right now and tell me who that serviceable quarterback that's on his bench is. I need to know. That caused him to drop Lamar and not just take the yeah. I need to know this.
Hold on.
If he takes the L, he's fine. He's not first place, but he still gets to the playoffs, right? And so
but it's about the bye week. Like we're all close. Everything's close. The points are all close. Okay, so his quarterback is Geno Smith.
Okay.
So it's not terrible. Yeah, no, Geno's been good. So it's not terrible, but yeah, I mean that's insane, dude. That is the definition of chestnut checkers. Like that is the definition of chestnut checkers. Holy shit! Now you should trade him Lamar back and then get more players from his team. But I think the trade deadline's already over, so it doesn't matter. But man, that's just wild. That is wild.
Anyway,
there should be a thread of all the things that people have done to fleece other people.
Yeah.
Like, for example, picking up a running back and then dropping him at 11:59 so no one else can pick him up. And you're like, I need a running back. And it's too late. At that
you mean shit I do twice every fucking week? Like that's
Samaje Perine? Yeah. I know exactly.
All day.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Oh, man. I can't believe Suns didn't start Samaje Perine, though. That was very wild. But anyways, let's talk football again.
That's the people we play with, and they suck. And they still make the playoffs. So. Yeah.
Kansas City, potential Super Bowl goers, are visiting one of the worst offenses in football history. One of the worst Broncos teams of all time, actually the worst Broncos offense of all time. Patrick Mahomes in the Chiefs side is a must-start, obviously. Travis Kelce is a must-start. Juju Smith-Schuster actually is a must-start, believe it or not. And then MBS was doing everything he could to just, keep the team happy while everybody else was out or injured or not trying to, do too much. So what do you make out of this? Well, you start Mahomes, you start Kelce, and you would start Juju at flex. You're not like he's not an RB or a wide receiver 1, but he's a solid flex option. MBS, you're not going to get those crazy games every day from MBS. It's just not going to happen. So that's one of those fool's gold kind of things. So just stay away. There's no consistency there to be like, I'm starting MBS again this week. I'm starting MBS again this week. So yeah, sure, whatever. That's what you get from that. So the running back situation gets a little interesting. I think there's only 2 scenarios that you would do one or the other. So I've kind of gathered enough intel to figure out what to do with those running backs. And I think games you expect to win, Chiefs playing really bad defenses, where things go out of hand early, you start Pacheco because they're going to run the ball a lot. He's a rookie. He needs that experience, blah, blah, blah. It just makes sense. McKinnon comes in games that are close that the Chiefs need to throw a lot because he's just gobbling up targets left and right. So this game is not one of those McKinnon games. He may get like 5 catches, but there's not going to be enough volume throughout the game to hope for a large amount of fantasy points for McKinnon to be serviceable. So I think it's another Pacheco game. I know the Broncos defense is solid. They're very, very good, but push comes to shove, there is nothing that the Chiefs get overpowered by, right? And Pacheco, like, I don't know if you guys see this guy the same way I see him, but this guy is one of the most violent runners I've ever seen in my life, period. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, like a month ago, I was like his first start or whatever, first time touching the ball or something. I was like, bro, like this guy pretends like every run is his last run ever. And like everybody says like his mom's going to get slapped if he doesn't get 2 yards. Like he runs like a fucking maniac. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. If you haven't seen him run, highly recommend it. Go watch. It's like beast mode level. If beast mode ran, beast mode plays every single play. So, he's a little guy, but he runs like a huge, huge mother effer. So anyways, that's the outlook for the running backs. So this game, I would happily start Pacheco and get maybe 8 to 12 fantasy points. Nothing crazy here because we still haven't seen the passing work there. On the Broncos end, they just lost for the first time since 2011 in a game where they allowed 10 or fewer points. Like, how much sadder does it get? Does it get any sadder than that, where your defense is playing lights out, only allowing 10 or fewer points, and you still lose that game, man? Like, you can't do that. That's just bad. That's just a terrible football team. But however, this matchup is about as friendly as it gets with, the outlook of being down all game, which is exactly what's going to happen. There's no way the Broncos take the lead for more than 2 quarters, if that even happens. So likely Russell Wilson's going to get to throw, right? And Russell Wilson's going to get to throw a lot this game. Sutton's out. So Dulcich will probably get a good amount of targets this game. Judy's back and healthy. He's got no injury designation now. And Hinton, the deep threat option, whatever. Not really worried about these options that much. However, Chiefs defense, pass defense especially, ranked 30th in passing touchdowns allowed. So I expect at least 2 touchdowns from Russell Wilson, one of those make right games or whatever. And then the Chiefs are 28th in red zone defense, where Russell Wilson has been sucking all year. So opportunity comes, you take it, right, Russell? So passing defense really not that great for the Chiefs, and then the red zone defense not that great for the Chiefs. So I think this is kind of like that ointment Russell Wilson's kind of needed to touch up on these areas that he's kind of sucked. Doesn't mean they're going to win the game. They don't have enough firepower to win this game, but I think they put up a good amount of points. It won't be less than 10 points because as good as the Chiefs are as a team overall, the pass defense, as you see from the numbers, 30th and 28th in red zone, it's not good enough. Plus, it's a divisional matchup game. Anything happens in divisional matchups. And, I don't know if you guys get a weird feeling right now, but, with the Raiders game happening this week, maybe this week being the divisional matchup week of all divisional matchup weeks, we see a lot of weird shit happen. So I'm open to any, like, this is one of those spooky season type of weeks where weird shit happens. And I think this game may give us a lot of that weird shit happening vibes.
Russell Wilson throwing 2 touchdowns would be the weirdest thing I've ever seen because he just doesn't know how to do that. So yeah, I mean, if that happens, that would be spooky.
All right, that takes us to the next game. Buccaneers at San Francisco 49ers playing against Mr. Irrelevant, hoping to stay relevant for this year. 49ers are favored by 3.5 points, low over and under at 37 points. Fantasy-wise, let's start with the Buccaneers. Leonard Fournette versus Rachaad White. That is a split carry situation. The 49ers allow the fewest fantasy points to running backs. So if I had to pick one, I'm picking Rachaad White just because he's seeming to get more of the important roles.
Showed up on the injury report, by the way, his foot.
He did. Yeah. He is questionable as well. So more for Rachaad White. Fournette got a lot of carries last week, but I think that was due to Rachaad White's fumble and him getting the slap on the wrist. But then he came back in the fourth quarter, and it was, he got the touchdown late in the game. So I'm leaning Rachaad White, and the injury helps out as well. Chris Godwin, you're probably still starting him, even though they're playing a really tough 49ers defense. I mean, it's Godwin, and he gets all of those targets on those slants. You're still going to start him. Not starting Tom Brady. Tom Brady is kind of getting lucky with these late touchdowns to kind of save his fantasy day. Other than that, you're not liking anything that you've seen from Tom Brady fantasy-wise. Mike Evans, you're probably still going to start him as well. He's your top-tier receiver that you went out and drafted. I don't see how you can not start Mike Evans. And then Cameron Brate was full practice. So that just means Kadon had a solid day. He's a tough start for me. I think with Cameron Brate being back, I'll have to see Kadon on the field this week to kind of make a judgment and decide whether to start him moving forward or not. On the 49ers side, so the 49ers are going to take a hit because of Brock Purdy. That's what, that's what the, I guess, thought process is as far as how fantasy is going to be, how we're going to handle these players. But CMC and Deebo Samuel should be the ones that benefit from Brock Purdy. I think that there's going to be a lot of checkdowns to CMC, and then Deebo Samuel, he's the best player on that team. So I think they'll drop more plays for Samuel, either on the rushing game or the passing game. Short passes, things like that. George Kittle is a start because, again, who are your other options on tight end? He is still like top 10 tight end this year, and it's because of a lot of like double-digit points and scores, but he's still probably gonna get the start. I think he gets the biggest hit because of Brock Purdy. I think they run the ball more than they pass the ball. And then Ayuk is a low-end wide receiver 2 flex option. He still got enough targets last game when Purdy was in for you to be like, okay, he'll be there. And if you need a flex option, he's the guy for you. But this matchup is going to be it's going to be tough for the Buccaneers, right? Like the 49ers are built to beat the Buccaneers. They've got a solid defense, pass defense, rush defense as well. Buccaneers, they only come alive in like the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter, it seems like. And so it's going to be a very, very tough matchup. Brock Purdy and the offense, I think, just needs to do enough to be able to put up points, and then the defense is going to step up and help them win the game against the Buccaneers, in my opinion.
Yeah, Tom Brady should be on his ass a lot at the hands of Nick Bosa. Next game on the board, the Panthers traveling to Seattle to face Geno Smith and the Seahawks, who are favored by 3.5 over under 44.5. New quarterback at the helm for the Panthers, new this season, not really new. Sam Darnold, he's 1-0 as a starter this year, but the Panthers are 0-5 on the road. So which one is going to give? The interesting aspect for the Panthers, though, they should have some success moving the football on the ground. The Seattle Seahawks run defense absolutely blows. They're allowing almost 160 yards a game on the ground. What does that mean? Deontay Foreman Fest. Foreman Fest is full aboard. You can start him with full confidence. DJ Moore with Sam Darnold looked a little bit more viable last week. 4 catches, 130 yards and a touchdown. 6 targets, not amazing, but those are twice the amount of targets of Terrence Marshall, and those are 3 times the amount of targets of every other player. So if they are going to have to throw the football, which against the Seahawks offense, who are clicking on all cylinders and scoring every which way, they're going to probably have to throw the football. And so that's why I don't mind DJ Moore as a start this week. On the Seahawks side, Geno, you start him. DK, you start him. You lock it, you start him. Again, I didn't think I'd be saying that 14 weeks into the season for the Seattle Seahawks, based on what I thought this offense was actually going to look like before the season started. Things to note, Ken Walker, injured. He has not practiced. They acted like it wasn't that big a deal, but he has not logged practice at all. So I am going to assume he's probably not going to play. DJ Dallas also has not practiced, so I am assuming he also probably will not play. Again, that's something to monitor heading into Sunday, but the healthy running backs on the roster, Travis Homer and Tony Jones Jr. Every time I see Tony Jones Jr., I just think of that time, Shisho, you started him for the Saints when he came in for Alvin Kamara.
Latavius Murray took that touchdown, didn't he?
Latavius vultured his ass. Latavius comes out of nowhere, vultured his ass. Classic Latavius. But yeah, I feel pretty great because I picked up Travis Homer. Not that it matters. I think he's going to be the starter this week. But why I feel even greater about this is I told you guys about my friend Peter, whose fantasy team I took over, right? And he needed a starter because his second running back had always been like a guy that I'm like telling him to pick up. Like he had Pirine the last couple of weeks and he crushed it, right? And he had DeAndre Swift who hadn't been doing well, so we had to like maneuver things. And this week, nobody on his waivers decided to pick up any of the Seahawks. So I had him pick up DJ Dallas and Travis Homer. I was like, pick both of them up because I don't know who's going to start. It doesn't look like Ken Walker's going to play, but at this point, it doesn't look like DJ Dallas is going to play. So process of elimination, Travis Homer is going to be the starting running back there. And if nothing, Tony Jones Jr. may be like the first down guy, but Homer is going to be the pass catcher, right? And so I still feel confident that the running back for this team is a good fantasy start just because this offense has been extremely, extremely efficient and clicking on all cylinders. So if Travis Homer is the healthy guy, you start him. If it's Tony Jones, you probably don't start him, but I feel a lot more confident starting Travis Homer because I don't think Walker and Dallas are going to play. But I think Seattle should win this football game. The Panthers haven't been fantastic, but the only Achilles heel for Seattle and the way that they can keep this offense off the field is if they run the football effectively, which Seattle sucks at. So if Foreman can control the clock and if he can do his best Derrick Henry impression and the Panthers do their best Titans impression, that's the only blueprint for the Panthers to win this game.
Late Spooky season, baby. Weird shit's gonna happen this week. All right, so my two teams that I had in the AFC Championship game are playing against each other. Week 14, the Dolphins face the Chargers. Miami's favored by only 3 points, which is really, really baffling to me. Over/under is at 52.5. Okay, so let's talk some numbers. Dolphins, what are they going to do this game? Well, the Chargers defense puts little to no pressure, ranking 27th in sacks, and they're ranked 26th in passing touchdowns allowed, 28th in rush yards allowed. So they're just a porous defense that just sucks at all aspects of defending. And they're facing like some of the fastest people on earth. And, I don't know, like we have one of the fastest release quarterbacks in the NFL, throwing into the fastest wide receiver in the NFL. And the second receiver on his team is top 10 fastest players in the NFL. And the running back is the fastest running back in Madden. There's just speed everywhere going against a lackluster defense with just nothing good about them at all. So, what's going to happen? Well, the usual shit's going to happen. Tua's going to have his 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, possibly type of games. Hill's going to get his yards for sure, targets, the PPR points for sure. Waddle and Sherfield seem to be having a battle for who can get more things as the number 2 right now. Waddle, we always knew Waddle was never going to be the wide receiver 1 here, but we did not think that the separation between a third wide receiver would happen at any point in the season. Waddle was a little hurt, so that is a little bit of a explanation for why Sherfield's getting to do more things lately. But Waddle, I think his injury designation was removed, so I think this game will kind of get a better picture of that. And again, it's the Chargers, right? So if Hill is covered for one play and he looks and Waddle's covered on that play too, very unlikely. I mean, he can easily throw to Sherfield. He can easily throw to Gesicki. This is just going to be a really easy day for Tua. I don't see any problems here from a Dolphins standpoint. But the thing is, they may not have to throw because of how bad this run game is. And every team we know would much rather run the ball than throw the ball if both aspects of the other team are bad. So Wilson, Mostert, who do you start, right? The $1 million question. Well, Wilson is not clearly, but it's like a 60-40 split at this point. Chargers allow 160 rush yards per game, 1.2 touchdowns per game. That's a touchdown guaranteed from the rushing aspect. That's bad. And that's on 28 touches per game allowed to running backs. So everybody runs the ball against the Chargers. That's just the thing they do. So that may be the only thing hindering these wide receivers from succeeding. So, deploy every Dolphin, just expecting one of them or 2 of them to have a really, really, really good day and a couple of other ones to have a decent day. So just to kind of put things into perspective, those stats I gave you about the Chargers, that they're the 4th worst fantasy points allowing team for running backs. So they just give running backs really, really good days. To chalk it up, Wilson is probably more favored than Mostert. But Mostert, all he needs is one opening space, something Wilson cannot do. And Mostert is the fastest running back in Madden. So, just needs a little bit of opening, which the Chargers do handsomely. So you can start them both. There's a really good chance not everybody here performs really well, but your odds are increased significantly when all these studs are all over the field and someone's going to get open, right? So pick your poison. It's going to be a long day for the Chargers defense. Chargers, however, face a Dolphins defense, which has been bad, right? They're pretty bad. We call this defense a bad defense. Pass yards are 21st. Not as bad as the Chargers defense, but it's still bad. And rushing yards are 8th. So that's actually on the better end from a rushing standpoint. So, but here's the thing. Chargers don't run the ball. They just don't run the ball. So they don't have to worry about that stat. They're going to just continue to do what they normally do. Herbert's going to find Eckler 10 times, probably going to catch 8 to 10 of those. And then Keenan Allen's healthy. Mike Williams has no injury designation. What the hell is this happening? Are we all panicking? Is this happening? Or are we is this the moment of truth? Are we, week 2 was when Herbert was injured. And then since then it's been chaos in the land of the Chargers with people dropping here and there, defense dropping, offense dropping, everybody dropping. But it seems like the offense has come back together. They got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, they got Everett and Palmer all healthy with no injury designation. So are we going to get to see this Dolphins bad pass defense get a little exposed? Are we going to get a good game here? And I think so. Unless the Dolphins run away quite literally with this game and make things really difficult for the Chargers, I think we get a big, nice shootout kind of game where Herbert's kind of coming from behind most of the game because, Tua, looking at how bad one of those most recent games was, most of the season he's been probably the most accurate and the least turnover-prone quarterback in the NFL. So against a really bad Chargers defense, I don't see anything changing. I think it's going to be a safe day on the side of the Dolphins, and I think we're just going to get a lot of throwing and a lot of running. It's just going to be points. A lot of big play activities are happening, and I think it's going to be a fun game for Sunday night football.
Should be a great matchup. Hopefully the Chargers come to play, man.
Yeah, you would think so with everybody having back.
Nice. All right. From Sunday Night Football, that takes us to Monday Night Football, Patriots at Cardinals. One thing about Monday Night Football, we talk about like theme songs and stuff. I hate the Monday Night Football like song, like things that they do. It's like a dubstep deal that they're doing. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's so annoying. It gives me anxiety every time I hear it. But going back to the game, New England's favored by 1.5 points. Over under is 43.5 points in this game. Fantasy wise, Mac Jones, he is playing against the 24th worst pass defense in the NFL. So if you need a streaming option, like I do, I think
You
Mac
think
Jones
so?
could be
Why don't you start him against me? Show it. Why don't you do that? Go ahead.
against you.
Yeah, just do it. What do you have to
Oh,
lose?
man.
What do you have to lose?
You know, you're the last person I want in the playoffs. I'm sorry, man, but your team is so good. I just like I need to find a way to beat you, but I don't think I will. I think it's gonna be tough for me.
Yeah, that's weird.
I have Tom. It's Mac Jones versus Tom Brady for me right now, and I don't even think I have anyone else to deploy. But I'll look at my options.
Yeah, nice little stress-free week for you to just make some random decisions.
Yeah, I know, right? Let's see what happens. Another guy you want to start for the Patriots, probably the only other guy, Ramondre Stevenson, against the Cardinals, who have given up a total average of 24 points per game to running backs. Surprisingly, since week 8, the Patriots have not had a over 100 yards rushing game as a team since week 8, which I thought was kind of I didn't see that coming, but that's because they have issues with offensive linemen. But Damian Harris is still injured, and Ramondre Stevenson is the lead back there, so I expect them to continue utilizing him against these Cardinals. On the Cardinals side, you're going to start Kyler Murray. You're starting James Conner. He has a difficult matchup against the Patriots, who allowed 3.73 yards per carry, but he is a workhorse. He gets the carries, so you're going to continue starting him. DeAndre Hopkins gets a start, obviously, and then Marquise Brown also could get a start for you, given that Rondale Moore he missed practice on Friday. So if you need a streamable option, Marquise Brown is a good option for you here. In terms of the game, I think it's going to be an interesting game. I expect the Patriots to try to pass the ball more, so I'm expecting more Mac Jones play to the weakness of the Cardinals. And then on the Cardinals side, Kyler Murray needs to step up, and Kyler Murray needs to do things to kind of make this team a little bit more competitive. I think that they're just not good of a team. Their record shows that they're 4-8. So it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. But those are the guys I would start on fantasy.
Nice way to round out the week 14 action. That is it for the rundown. Let's end the episode real quick with giving out our matchups of the week. I'll kick us off, guys. My matchup of the week is the Dallas Cowboys defense, who is number 1 in fantasy football. They are playing the Houston Texans, who are 32nd against opposing defenses in terms of points. This is a match made in heaven. Don't be surprised if the Cowboys defense puts up 30 points on their own. Why? Cleveland's defense last week, 31 against this team. Miami's defense the week before that, 20 points against this team. Washington Commanders the week before that, 21 points. Holy shit, this defense has surrendered 72 points this offense has surrendered 71 points to opposing defenses over the last 3 weeks. I mean, you probably don't even get 72 points from like Tyreek Hill over 3 weeks. So that is insanity right there. This Dallas defense, I mean, if you have them this week, it's to me, if they don't score 15 points at least, it's a letdown. It's a letdown. So Dallas Cowboys defense, my matchup of the week.
Absolutely agreed. I've been starting Dallas defense since week 3, and I've had the Bills defense this whole time. They've never seen the field outside of a bye week where I actually went against the Texans with a different team. So, so I don't know why I'm holding the Bills defense. They're never going to see the day. All right. So my matchup of the week is Justin Jefferson versus Detroit. I see a world where the most volume-sucking wide receiver in the NFL gets fed. Detroit's 27th in sacks. So, as much as I praise them on their offense, Their defense sucks. Their defense is 27th in sacks, which bodes well for our tree stump of a quarterback, which has actually been running a little bit as of late. But, it's just deliver the ball to Justin Jefferson. He'll give you fantasy points. And if you're not pressuring our quarterback, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. And then just Detroit allows they're 31st in points allowed, total points allowed. So you're going to see a lot of high scoring. And who scores the ball for the Minnesota Vikings? It's Justin Jefferson-led offense. So everything points towards a huge, huge volume guzzling day for Justin Jefferson going up against this really porous defense. And with a really porous defense of his own, it's going to be a high scoring affair. That means the ball is going to have to come to him at least 15 times. It's going to be probably going to be the most targets he's ever seen in his life. So all that being said, I think that's going to easily make it the matchup of the week for me.
That's a good matchup. So my matchup of the week is going to be a guy who I just talked about, Ramondre Stevenson. I think that he is in a favorable matchup. I just gave the stat out. I'll say it again. Cardinals give up 24 points per game to running backs. So Stevenson, a workhorse. I don't see any reason for him not to continue to get those targets and carries as well. So I like my chances with Ramondre Stevenson this week.
All great matchups. They should all feast. That is the episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Another episode in the books. Tell your friends, tell your wives, tell your kids about the Only Playbook and get on board. Listen to us if you want to win your fantasy leagues, or if you need any help, obviously message us. We're here to help. We want to make sure you succeed. Follow us on all the social medias. Listen to us on any place you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube. I'm Sweetheart. That's Shashot. Actually, I'm Sweetheart. That's Dr. Oja to you guys, and that's Shovit. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Win your leagues, win your money, and hope your favorite team wins. Peace.